Hashem. Kum Len Black Gemara. We are up to Masechta Tainis Daf Yud Dalid Amid Aleph, and we are up to the two dots, about 15 lines on the top of the page. So we have three brises. Tani Chada. Remember, we learned that there are three different brackets of fasting when it comes to a lack of rain. First, you have the first set of three, which is only for Yechidim. Then you have the second set of three, which is far stricter, and you fast your rain 24 hours. And the Nuyim, and then you have the third set, but the third set already is 7 consecutive Mondays, Thursdays, Mondays, and so on for seven consecutive fasts. And they already, you blow shofar, you shut the stores down, and it's really the strictest kind of fasting. And beyond that, we don't force you to fast anymore. Tani Chad, we learned in one brayse, ubreis, umenikes, pregnant women and nursing mothers, misanas b'deshenis, they fast in the first bracket, the ain misanas b'chein, they don't fast in the last bracket. Now, we don't know what first and last means. The first means literally the first, and the latter means all the other ones, or does the achrei means the very last, and the first means compared to that, the middle one? We'll soon see. So one brayse says only the first and not the last. But Tani is another brayse, exactly the opposite. Misanas b'chein, they fast in the latter one, the latest, the ain misanas b'chein, that's in the first ones. Exactly the opposite of the first brayse. The Tani in the third brayse we learned ain misanas, they don't fast. Not the first ones. So what's going on here? So Rashi says, this is the way Rashi learns in most of Shayim, the koit and tzayisa b'yodach, the metats and kula. They all three are an agreement that the only fast that she has to fast is not the first bracket, because it's not severe at all. In fact, only Yechidim fast. Not the last bracket, because it's way too long, 7. But she commits herself to the middle one, the 3, which is severe, but it's only 3. So you take each brayse and then you learn it in a way that it makes sense. So, for example, the very first brayse that says you fast in the first ones but not in the second, it meant you fast in the middle ones compared to the last. It's considered the earlier ones, and you don't fast in the last ones. The other brayse that says you fast in the last ones, not the first. The first means literally the first, and the last one means the middle ones. So again, they're saying the middle ones you do fast. And the third brayse that says you don't fast the first or the last means literally you don't fast the first bracket, you don't fast the last bracket. The only fast that she does fast is the middle bracket. Telling you a little further, Ma'elu, you say this, what exactly is this more? How is this more than the first ones? In the last one, in addition, you also blow the shofar, plus you shut the stores down, except Thursday you leave it open, and Monday a little bit towards the end of the day. Says the Gemara, my masin. When you say the word masin, what exactly do you mean? Rabbi Yehuda literally means make a lot of noise. How? Rabbi Yehuda says it's b'shofars. They're blowing a trumpet, a shofar. And Rabbi Yehuda they say anenu, but this anenu is not the anenu that we normally say by fast day. This anenu is what we say by slichas anenu, lekenu anenu, and so on. Talk about that anenu. Manda amar, yeah. That we thought, Manda Amma Ba'anenu, the one who says Ba'anenu loy Amma b'shofars. The one who says Anenu does not say it by shofar. In other words, he holds that there's no shofar. And the last set of 7 fast days, you don't blow shofar, you just say that part of Slichas Anenu. Manda Amma b'shofars, the one who says b'shofars loy Amma Ba'anenu does not say Anenu. That's what we thought. Says the Gemara, Tanya, didn't we learn Ein Peichsin Mesheva Tinius Ala Tzibur? So we thought right now that one of the Pashat arguing whether you blow shofar or whether you say a name. It's one, they're mutually exclusive. Says the Gemara, how can that be? Well, Tanya, didn't we learn Ein Peichsin Mesheva Tinius Ala Tzibur? We do not have less than 7 fasts on the Tzibur Shebehen during those 7 fasts. Yud Ches Hasros. We blow 18, or we do 18 hasros. And now we don't know what hasros are, right? So you're having an argument whether hasros means shofar or means saying anenu. And then we say that the similar davar, just remember, this is based on Yerichai. When they circled the walls of Yerichai, they had to circle every day, and they blew shofar, and eventually the walls crumbled, and they got submerged in the ground. Now, the Yerichai shofars have, they blew shofar, and we're bringing an analogy to Yerichai. Obviously, we're talking about shofars. We're not talking about saying anenu. So the opinion that says that hasra means anenu, and anenu is we said we should exclusive no shofars. Clearly from the brayse did shofar. So you're right. No one argues that you don't, that whether you do shofar or not. Everyone agrees you do shofar. Ela b'shofar kuliyam lepligi de korle hasra. Shofar definitely is called hasra. You did shofar. Ki pligi b'anenu. Did you also say anenu? That's the argument. Masava Karli Hasra, Nani can also go under the umbrella, under the word Hasra. You're screaming out. Umasava like Karli Hasra. You wouldn't refer to screaming out by davening the word Hasra. Therefore, it's only Shayfa is no name. The mandam about Nenu, the one who says that you say Anenu in during these last 7 fast days, Koshkin b'Shefer, surely blow the Shefer. Well, the mandam b'Shefer, the one who says that you blow Shefer, Avabanenu loy, but they did not say Anenu. Says the Gemara, and as Rashi explains as well, they're arguing not by a drought, but other tzaras as well. And by other tzaras, you also fast and you also declare, fast days, you make us so on and so forth. Whether you say Anenu or not. Now, there's the older Shemir have a problem that we're talking here about shofar. When we just learned Gemara Rosh Hashanah that on a fast day you don't blow shofar, you blow the trumpets, the chatzitzis. And here we keep on saying shofar. So someone will say that if you remember, we had a Gemara that certain words have changed their meanings, and that what used to be called shofar now be called chatzitzis, and the other way around. So when we say here shofar, we don't mean shofar, we mean actually chatzitzis. Others want to say there's a difference between shar tzaras or rain. Rain is trumpets, and shar tzaras maybe it's shofars, or there's a difference whether it's in Eretz Yisrael. If you have the whole Klal Yisrael, then you use a trumpet. That's Moshe Rabbeinu, who is calling together all the Eden. But when you only have a certain section of Eden, then we use shofars, a more stirring sound. Says the Gemara, what Tanya didn't we learn? Any other kind of trouble that people have to experience. For example, chichul, they have this itch that they can't get rid of. Chichul literally is rubbing against the wall. Chagav is a locust, zvuv, flies and serum, wasps and hornets and all that, and bees, and mosquitoes. They have this snakes and scorpions, which were threatened by them. And they weren't masriya elotzoyiki. They used to scream out. That tzaka definitely means verbal. So they weren't masriya, but they were tzaka. What do you mean they weren't? So what's masriya then? If you're saying masriya means screaming out, davening, anenu, so on. So what do you mean they weren't masriya, but they were tzoyikin? Obviously, b'ditzaka b'peh hasra b'shofars. Clearly, this brisa holds that hasra means shofar, and they're saying they didn't do shofars; they only screamed out, davening. So most of you right. This brisa taka holds that hasra definitely means shofar and not saying slichus. But tanoi, it's a ma'apleket tanoi. Tani, we learned al elu masriya b'Shabbos on the following. You're masriya on Shabbos. And by saying masriya, we'll soon see what he means. Which cases? These are urgent cases. Al-ir shekifu agayis, a city that was surrounded by bandits or by an army, or a river that's threatening to flood the city, or al-sfira hamutaref b'yam, or a ship threatened to be capsized in the ocean. All of these, you're allowed to be masriya. Rabbi Yossi says you're only allowed to make noise la'azod if you want people to come in and help and save you. But stam to daven, you shouldn't even be screaming out, because who says that it's that you're going to help anyway? We're not so guaranteed that it's going to help on Shabbos, so therefore don't do it on Shabbos. So what do we see clearly from here? We're talking about the peh. We're talking about the peh. Anybody holds a lot of blow shofar Shabbos? Of course not. When he said al elu masriyan b'Shabbos, what are they talking about? They're talking about davening and screaming out. So we see that this brisa holds that masriya means davening. We see there's an argument of Tanoim. In the years of Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya, Rabbi Yehuda Nasiya was a grandson of Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, Havitzara. There was some kind of trouble taking place. So the Gozli, he decided to follow the pattern when it comes to a drought, that brackets of 3, then 7. Goza tlas esse tinius. They fasted 13 tinius. And they did not have a response. Saval makes it fair. He wants to prolong it. Don't we say we don't do more than 13, because it's to no avail. The Eibush should decide for whatever it is, that's how it's going to be, and you're making it too difficult for people. You're not allowed to make a tircha on the tzibur when it's very difficult, when it's too oppressive. This Rab Ami that he contested, or he protested against this idea of having more than 13 fast days, he was doing because he didn't find it easy to fast. Because in fact, there's a difference between a drought and other tzaras. A drought, after a while, once you miss the rain season, there's no point in raining. That's why we stop fasting, not because it's too difficult. But other tzaras, as long as the tzara hasn't been remedied, you have to continue fasting. For all other trouble, misanin, they fast for hochin continue fasting until there's an answer from the Eibishter. We learned when we say the rule of three, rain. When it comes to all other tzaras, misanin v'holchin ad sheyanu. You continue fasting until you get a response from the Rebbeinu Shalom. So therefore, this idea of brackets 337 is only limited to rain, not to other things. So in fact, limit to have Judah Rabami, who told him to stop. Here's a kasha mefesh right? So it says he's supposed to continue. It's actually a machlekes tanoim if whether this limit of 13 fast days by a drought is limited only to a drought or to all tzaras. And depends what the reason is. The time we learn, Rebbe holds that the main reason why you don't have more than 13 is because it's too difficult. So what's a chil grain or any other tzara? Beyond 13, we can't impose these rules on people. They want to, they can. Yichidim used to continue fasting, but you can't make it a rule. Can't subject people to laws that are too difficult and too onerous. Rashbag says, Lo min Hashem huzeh. That's not the reason why we limit it to 13. It's too late. The rain season is over. If that's the reason why we don't have more than 13 fast days, so when it comes to other tzaras, if we didn't receive a response, we need to continue. The people of the city of Nineveh asked Rebbe, Kigoin Anan, for example, us. We need rain even in the summer. How do we behave? Is it keyichidim daminanu? So we need to ask for rain, but are we treated like individuals or asking, which means you say in Shema Kalenu? Or is it like a public? And we say in Baruch Aleinu, we say V'sein Talamoto in the middle of the summer because this community needs rain. Keyichidim damina, we like keyichidim b'shemet tefillah. And we therefore say it in Shemay Tefillah if we need rain, or are we like we're a whole city, a whole community, and therefore in Barech Aleinu, in the summer when the northern hemisphere says same bracha, we're going to say the same talamat bracha. So he answers in the back, he answers the back, it's like Yechidim, and you say it in Shemay Tefillah. Even though you need rain, you still the northern hemisphere doesn't, so therefore you just say same bracha. Meis will ask him a question. Omar Rabbi Yehuda Emasai. When do we say that this order of fast days, bisman shahashanim kitikunim, when the years are the way it's supposed to be? That was spring is spring, and planting is in Cheshvan and so on. The Yisrael shurin Muslim the Eden are settled in Eretz Yisrael because we're following Israel. Avol bisman hazeh hakol lefi hashanim depends which year. Every year the seasons might vary. And if that particular year you need rain later on, you should daven for rain later on. Depends which region you live in. For example, Nineveh might be different, and Nineveh requires rain even in the middle of the summer. And depending on what time of the year. Malays, he said back to him, you're asking a kasha from a brisa on Rebbe. Rebbe Tanu, Pollard, Rebbe's a Tana. Of course he argues. So Rabbi Yehuda says that everyone does whatever they want, and Rebbe holds no. Everyone has to follow the same pattern, and you don't say it in the summer, you say it in Shemay Tefillah. My Havila bottom line, if your city requires it, you say Baruch Aleinu. Rav Sheish is Amar b'Shemay Tefillah. Hilchas are b'Shemay Tefillah. So big machlek is a shaynim here, like southern hemisphere when we need rain at other times of the year. What do? The Rosh actually holds that if a whole area needs rain different times, you should say it like in hours, and like in the summer, we should be saying the same Talamat al-Bracha. In our winter, even though it's summer in the northern hemisphere, the halach is not like the Rosh, but what we do, we follow the rest of the world. However, if we said in our winter the same Talamat al-Bracha, the rest of the world is having summer, you don't have to repeat Shemon Esrei because at the end of the day, we need it here, and the Summer Hashem hold that in fact that's the appropriate tefillah to say. So therefore, we don't repeat Shemon Esrei. Says more further. It says in the Mishnah that B'Sheni Matin Im Chashecha. On the second day, the stores are closed, but on the second day, you leave them a little open towards evening so people can buy food for dinner. And on Thursday, all day. Now, what on Thursday all day? The mother wants to know. The mother's going to query. You mean Thursday you can also leave the door a little bit open all the entire day, or it means you don't open the door wide the entire day as if nothing happened. They cover the Shabbos. We're going to ask a question. Hey, Chitani, what are you telling us? The beis matinim chashecha on Monday you leave it a little bit open towards evening. Ubehei kol hayoyim they cover Shabbos, and on Thursday the entire day. Or perhaps b'sheni matin uv'chamishi poichli kolayim kulei. Second day, Monday, you leave the door a little bit open, but on Thursday you leave the door wide open all day, the entire day because of covered Shabbos. Tashma coming here. Time look the brayse b'sheni matin on Monday you leave it open a little bit towards the evening. Uv'chamishi on Thursday poichli loy kol hayom kulei. You leave the door wide open if they cover the Shabbos in honor of Shabbos. If you had two doors on a Monday, if you had two doors to your store, is Pesach Echad, you can actually open one door, and you keep one door closed. So therefore, that tells people already that it's a fast day and you're sort of partially closed. You had a chair standing in front of your door, so people can't automatically see your door open. Keneged Pischa right opposite your front door, so it blocks the view from the public. Then you can leave the door wide open, even though you're facing Shus Rabim. It's not a problem because people can't really see. So you're not teasing anybody, and you're not, you can leave the door open. Over then the Mishnah continues. What happens that the fast days went by and it's no longer and still going then no response? Then no longer any fast days, but generally the behavior has to change because we have to be in a spirit of children. You reduce business, and the binyan you reduce building, uvenati and planting. Tanya, what kind of building shouldn't you build? The binyan shel simcha. We're talking about binyan of joy, and the tia we're talking about planting the tia shel simcha. A plant of joy. What are we talking about? Ezel binyan shel simcha. The base chassid building. They used to build a house for the son to get married, and the chuppah took place right in front of that house, and then he would bring his kala, by then his wife, into the house. And in fact, there's opinions that we actually had ein simcha el b'makom chuppah. We had in Sukkah the ein simcha el b'makom chuppah, and in fact, according to many Sheva brachas, that you make Sheva brachas only if it's in the house of Beis Chasnus, not when you wander from house to house like we do today. And that's a house of joy. Obviously, it brings joy. What's considered a plant of simcha? Somebody plants a bavarniki shamalachim. What's a bavarniki shamalachim? So Rashi brings up shot that when a child is born, a prince is born, they would plant a tree in his name, and the day that he was coronated, they would make a throne out of that particular tree. That's what they used to do. Or just a beautiful tree they planted, which would provide great shade for people to, for the king himself, for the royal family to walk through in the hot summer days. We don't really ask for shalom. Somebody asks for shalom, you respond with a very soft tone. That's what we learned. No, that they don't say hello to each other. Who don't know the rules, if they ask, if they are cordial and they say to you, good morning, then you do respond. Otherwise, they won't understand why you're ignoring them. So you respond, but in the lower tone, with a heavy head. There was no passion, no enthusiasm. Just you cordially respond. They wrap themselves up like by an oval. They sit there like mourners, like those who are outcasts. As if the Eibush should put us in Chayrim. And this continues onwards until the Eibush has Achmanas. Omar Abelazar says, Ein Adam Chashiv, if you are a distinguished person and people there have the respect for you as being a Rav, a Tzaddik, Ein Adam Chashiv Rashoi Lipol Apanav. He's not allowed to go ahead and throw himself on his face to taba to Hashem and implore Hashem, beseech Hashem to help the Yidden out, because it's a humiliating gesture when you do that. And unless you guarantee, unless you guarantee that you're going to receive a response. Because if you don't receive a response, people are going to make fun of you and say, look at that, you acted like you're a big tzaddik and you're nobody. They shouldn't even listen to you. Obviously, as somebody was trying to point out, you must have done an Aveda or something, and somebody doesn't listen to you. And all you're doing is you're being mavazi. You're supposed to have covered that Torah. You're supposed to have the authority of Torah. People are going to lose respect for you, and we don't know that. Or others say, just the opposite. You shouldn't go on the ground unless people have such respect for you that even if you don't get a response, all they're going to say is, they're not going to say there's anything wrong with you. They're going to say is that that's the Eibusher's response. But for whatever reason, Abishai doesn't want to help us out. So, in other words, unless you know that you're in the eyes that you're choshev like Yehoshua, and therefore the people, not talking about the Abishai, the people, then regardless of whether you receive a response, it's not going to diminish their faith and their respect for you and your authority. She never said, Abishai says to Yehoshua, kum lach, stand up, why are you falling down on the ground? The same thing, a person, a very chashuv person that people have respect for should not go ahead and put on a sack, again, be humiliating yourself, and self-effacing, unless you're guaranteed that you're going to get a response, like Yehoidim and Achav. Your Achav's son was a big Russia, Yehoidim wasn't any better. Also a big Russia. But when there's a terrible famine, and he heard the story from this woman, how people, the terrible famine, the effects it has, he was very upset and he went to fast. And it says, when he heard the story related by the woman, he rendered his clothes, he ripped his clothes, he walked on the wall, and everyone looked up and observed him. And what did they see? They saw that he was wearing a sack on his flesh. And he continued walking. And why? Because the Abish responded. So therefore, only then should you be. We're talking about in public, in the privacy of your home. Of course, you should do everything that you can to daven, but in the public, you shouldn't make this public display unless you're guaranteed that you will get a response. Rabbi said, not everyone should go ahead and go to this extreme of renting their clothes or ripping their clothes. Not everyone should go ahead and throw themselves on the floor, prostrate on the floor in front of everybody. Moshe, in fact, not even in the old days, not everyone did both things. Moshe, Aaron, how did they daven to the Eibush to Benefila by the Philosophaim? And the Kolev did a big clear by ripping his clothes. What's the story? Moshe Aaron Philosophy, it says a pasuk by the Meraglim, Vayipol Moshe Aaron Apnem. They fell on the faces before the Eden. Yeshua the Kolev that they did clear. The Chsiv it says in the next pasuk the Yeshua ben Nun. And the Kolev and Yifunu is Koru Bigdem. They ripped their clothes. So we see each one had a different way of davening to the Eibishter. Maskil or Rabbi Zayda asked, if it's two separate psukim. If the first pasuk says, they fell on the faces for the Eibishter and for the Eden, and the next pasuk says, Yehoshua ben Nun Kolev ben Yifunu did it to rent the clothes, and you're right. But because it says and Yehoshua, it's a continuation of what Moshe and Aaron did. That means they also fell on the floor. Plus, if it said Yehoshua without the minus the vav keda amit, like you're saying, that he had his own way and Moshe had his own way. Hashta the Yehoshua, hava ha'avid. Yeshua and Kolev did both. The Philosophaim, and they did Kriya Begadim. Rabbi Loza says, in other words, Kriya is a step more than a Philosophaim. Philosophaim is Moshe Aaron was so chashuv for them. The Philosophaim was sufficient. Yeshua and Kolev were low madrega, so they had to go ahead and rip their clothes and do a more drastic action to daven to the Eibishter. Says the Gemara, not everyone is stand up, and Mashiach will come. Not everyone will bow down. Melachim bekima, by the king's royal family, they'll be standing up, and v'sari b'shtachava. And when it comes to the officers, the ministers, they're going to bow down. Melachim bekima. So we're saying that Melachim will be bekima l'chsi because it says in the pasuk. We're talking about when Mashiach will come and the Goyim will stand there and give cover to the Yiddish nation. So the Goyim will depend which Goyim you are, will give different kinds of cover to the Yidden. So the royalty amongst the Goyim, they're going to stand up before the Yidden, but the officers and the ministers, they're going to bow down. What do you mean? Malachim bekima the chsivit at pasuk Karem Hashem Goy Yisrael Kedoshai leaves a nefesh leMessiah Goy. Is Meishli Malachim Yidu become that the Yidden who were always abused and ridiculed by the Goyim, and we had servitude to the Goyim, they had dominion over us. But La'asad Lava, these very same Goyim, Malachim, their royalty, Yidu they will see us, and the Kamu, they will stand up. The Sadi Mishtachava, how do you know that the officers among the Goyim will bow down? It says, Sarim v'yishtachavu. The Sarim, they will bow down. That's what's going to happen in Los Lovin. So masculine it would have said sorry mishtachavu. If it would have said sorry with minus above, okay. Then we'll say that each one does it a different way. King stands up, and then sorim they bow down. But sorim v'yishtachu. Now that it says visorim, it says that and the sorim will bow down. So then it means that they'll do both. Exactly what we said a minute ago by Yeshua and Kolav. That vav means that they'll do whatever Moshe Aaron did plus that. Same thing here. The sorim will stand up and then they will prostrate themselves for the Yidden. Is a hash to the sorim v'yishtachu with the vav. Is ha the ha of it. They'll do both. They'll stand up and then they will prostrate themselves. Oh, and I also say the same thing. Also, not everyone will be zeicher to the oiv, and this is very interesting. Not everyone will be zeicher to simcha. Tzaddikim will receive oir. Receive oir zerua la tzaddik. Oir was planted for tzaddikim, but liyisharim to those who are straight is simcha. Receive liyishrei leiv simcha. And Rashi says Yisharim are greater than Tzaddikim, but he doesn't explain what Yisharim are. Taisa learns all the way around that Tzaddikim are greater than Yisharim. The question is, what's greater, Oir or Simcha? Rashi holds that there's nothing greater than Simcha. And therefore, if Simcha is for Yisharim, then Yisharim must be greater than Tzaddikim. So what exactly is Yisharim? It doesn't explain here or in the Rishonim what exactly is Yisharim. Because usually we say Yisharim are like Tzaddikim. They're straight, or straight down the line. It's not about Shuvah, it's a Yisharim. So what's the difference between Yisharim and Tzaddikim? And then they're arguing whether Oid is greater than Simcha, or Simcha is greater than Oid. So not much clarity here. Anyway, Hadin Allah, Me'im Messiah, this completes the first Pedic. Tomorrow night, Mitchell will start the second.